crazy with the bug reports, with 4 new bugs reported to PlayStation via the HackerOne bug bounty program. 3 of them appear to be low severity reports, possibly userland related, so could even be something less serious, but there was also a 10K report which has the potential to be some kind of new kernel vulnerability. Now this is not always the case, as sometimes multiple smaller bugs can be bundled in with one report and can net a bounty of 10K or more, but at least one of these vulnerabilities could end up being useful in the future, assuming that they are eventually disclosed. Now these vulnerabilities could either be for PS4 or PS5. Gezine seems to be more focused on exploiting the PS5 at the moment, but even so, some bugs that affect the PS5 can also impact the PS4 as well, and generally they don't close the reports and pay out the bounties until the patched firmware is public and has been confirmed to fix the issues, which would mean that 13.60 has already patched these bugs, and 13.42 would be the latest vulnerable firmware for the PS5, 13.50 for PS4. But the reports don't stop there, as we also have another 10K report from MasterMaind, who has also been posting about it over on X. Now this vulnerability appears to be the exFAT bug that they reported on a few months back, which was patched in firmware 13.52 on the PS4 and should still work up to 13.50. Now it was either this exact bug or a very similar one that was already known within the community, which was never turned into a usable exploit, as the developers at the time deemed it to be impractical to try and turn it into a usable exploit. It was just considered to be a denial of service bug, which is something that can only be used to freeze or crash the console and not something useful for privilege escalation. Now back when the original 9.00 PS4 exFAT kernel exploit from the flow was patched, the one where you plug in the USB drive to jailbreak, in firmware 9.03 that kernel exploit was patched, and people discovered that it was still possible to cause crashes and errors with a malformed exFAT USB, leading people to believe at the time that it may be possible to actually get some kind of after-patch version of the exploit working, as it appeared that PlayStation did not do a great job of patching it in the first place, but it never resulted in anything useful, so it's since been deemed as a denial of service bug. However, MasterMaind has continued to work on it and has been pushing back on people who have been saying it's only useful for denial of service, and has continued to work on it, and now they have received a $10,000 bounty for the report, which would mean that PlayStation themselves deem it seriously enough to award a $10,000 bounty. And would they really pay out that much for something that's just a denial of service bug? I guess we will know for sure who is right and who is wrong regarding the bug's viability once it's disclosed, as MasterMaind has indicated their intent to go through the HackerOne disclosure process, so that the details will eventually be made public, and then we will know for sure. And there also seems to be hope on the hypervisor front as well, as Zeco has recently posted that there seems to be some hypervisor bug that got patched and should be related to IOMMU. Before everyone asks, I didn't get this information from KeysFriend, I got it from someone else besides KeysFriend who also has the keys. Seems to be patched on 14.0, so do not update and stay on 13.42 and below. That would indicate that it's also patched in 13.60, so 13.42 and below. So that would be a huge leap from the previous hypervisor exploits we have working up to 7.61, to go from 7.61 to 13.42, to have support for a hypervisor exploit, which would mean being able to run Linux all the way up to 13.42, which would be incredible. And that would also encompass things like PS5 Pros being able to run Linux as well. And you have to bear in mind, the reason why people are scattered on all these different firmware versions on the PS5 is because we generally don't encourage people to update from older firmwares to higher ones, even if the higher ones are jailbreakable too. It's mainly because we don't have hypervisor exploits on the higher firmwares, and the older your firmware is on, the more likely you are to get a hypervisor exploit sooner. That effectively goes out the window if we end up with a hypervisor exploit on 13.42. You might as well in that situation just update an old console to 12.0 so you can use the web browser jailbreak and then use this hypervisor exploit to still be able to run Linux up to that firmware. Now, we shouldn't get too hyped up about this yet, because this is just the first time we're hearing about this, and we don't know if the bug is exploitable yet and if it will get released. So those are obviously some key questions, but still some exciting news nevertheless. So moving on to some updates for the web browser-based jailbreak slop kit from Jordi. So Jordi released an updated version where he said he rewrote the poops kernel exploit and added missing 9.05 profile stability. Should be better, and Kstuff and payload autoloader options are now included. Now, since then, the site has been reworked to effectively use the same design as the older WebKit exploits for the UMTX kernel exploit from idle-source, the implementation from idle-source. So as you can see here, it looks the same as those older exploits now when you go to jordi.idk.github.io/slopkit. So you get the two options, the jailbreak option to run the jailbreak. Once the jailbreak completes, you then get all the payloads, and it has all of the main payloads now added, including things like Kstuff Lite and Shadowmount Plus. And you can also load the payload manager from within here as well. So that's all been added there. Plus this version of the WebKit exploit has the WebKit only sender option as well, which means once you've already ran the jailbreak and then you want to load another payload, you don't have to like run the jailbreak again a second time, which will likely crash the console. You can just select WebKit only sender, which will just take you to the payloads page because you already have the jailbreak loaded, and you can then select additional payloads to run. So it's nice to see that feature has been added here in this version. Now also Zeco's host has been updated as well to include more payloads, including the WebKit Autoloader installer. So you can run that to install the WebKit Autoloader, which creates a shortcut on the media section that you can run to just automatically load the web browser-based jailbreak and then load the payload manager automatically. Within the payload manager, you can then have the option to auto-load the payloads from within there. So it can just be a one-click solution of loading up that shortcut to get the jailbreak loaded with all of your payloads included. Now there is a new pre-release build of the WebKit Autoloader installer, which aims to add support for the old web browser-based jailbreaks as well. So you'll be able to use the autoloader on firmwares 1.00 to 5.50 with the old UMTX jailbreak, and then also 9.00 to 12.00 as well. So whether you're on those older firmwares with the UMTX exploit or you're on the higher firmwares 9.0 to 12.0, it will essentially be integrated into one. So when you run the WebKit Autoloader with the new version, it will detect what firmware you're on and then load the appropriate WebKit jailbreak for that specific firmware. So that way you can get up and running with the jailbreak on the old jailbreakable firmwares and the new WebKit jailbreakable firmwares as well. I believe that may also be the plan with Jordi's host as well, since it's mimicking the idle-source host from the older jailbreaks. Might as well integrate those older jailbreaks in with the new one as well. So anybody who is on a WebKit jailbreakable firmware, whether it's the old one or the new one, will be able to load the jailbreak from the same host. And lastly, for the web browser-based jailbreaks, we also got this teaser from Sonic ISO. The timer is way off, lol, but it's work in progress. So this is a showcase of an implementation of Patience to Jailbreak that is being integrated with the WebKit exploit. So we'll be able to use the web browser to load the jailbreak up to 12.70 with Patience to Jailbreak. So firmwares from 12.02 up to 12.70 will be able to jailbreak with the web browser. But because the 50-minute wait time is a limitation of the kernel exploit, not the userland exploit, that means that we will still have to wait 50 minutes on those higher firmwares to load the jailbreak. It will just be easier to load it through the web browser without having to restore a backup for the YouTube jailbreak or burning a Blu-ray disc or anything like that. So more convenient to access, but still takes the 50 minutes in order to load. But it looks promising that we're going to see an implementation with the Patience to Jailbreak, so we can use the web browser to jailbreak up to 12.70. And of course, in other news, we also got the release of Kstuff Lite version 1.10 from EchoStretch. So it looks like a fairly small update here. We can see we have improved stability and performance. That would be across the board, along with added updated kit support. So updated support for test kit consoles, I believe. So that's what's been included there. And of course, you can easily update your Kstuff Lite build to the latest version in the payload manager by just going into the manage payload section and selecting the option to update when you're connected to the internet for Kstuff. Now we also have this new etaHEN project by Michelle Media. So the first public beta of etaHEN, an experimental all-in-one PS5 homebrew environment. Now, the slight issue with this is that it seems to just be mainly rebranding etaHEN, and LightningMods has commented on this, saying, I'm aware of people rebranding etaHEN, and while I encourage people to contribute to the project, I don't like rebranding. I recommend only using the official etaHEN builds. If you want to encourage faster updates, I recommend making a donation via the GH sponsors. So that is something that you can do if you want to support the original project. The problem, though, of course, is that the latest public release of etaHEN is still the 2.5b version on the GitHub repo, and that version came out in December of 2025, so it's very outdated. It only properly supports firmwares up to 10.01, and it still includes old Kstuff builds, and I believe the updater also updates the older version of Kstuff instead of updating to Kstuff Lite. so it's pretty outdated at this stage. There are slightly more up-to-date builds, test builds that you can load, but for the most part, it's not really been properly updated. So I can definitely understand the need for these kind of alternative reworks of etaHEN to try and make it more up-to-date with the kind of things that we use with our jailbroken PS5s today. And that is effectively what this etaHEN is trying to solve. When you load up this etaHEN project, it will give you a selector initially of what version of Kstuff you want to run, either Kstuff Lite or the Drakmor fork of Kstuff Lite. And then it will also load Shadowmount Plus automatically and the PS5 Debug NG service for remote debugging. That's also included. If you install items flow separately, there's a game manager integration option in the toolbox, which you can select to automatically open items flow. The cheat loader within the toolbox now has more cheat repositories that you can install from the toolbox, so that you have more PS4 and PS5 cheats that you can install and run within this HEN project. And then there's also game overlays and a bunch of other features. It's mostly the same stuff that's carried over from etaHEN. It's effectively the same etaHEN toolbox, just with some augmentations. Although the toolbox still only works up to 10.01, just like the latest builds of etaHEN. So that, I believe, is the next focus for the developers, is to try and port the toolbox up to higher firmware so it can be used up to the latest jailbreakable firmwares 12.70. So anyway, that's going to do it here for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed this video or found the information useful. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. And as always, I will hopefully see you guys